Live.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the show, Conscious Living Radio in Vancouver, 100.5 FM, CFRO. Also live on Facebook, also available as a podcast after the fact, www.consciousliving.radio.org. So, and YouTube channels, right, Mark?
You bet.
So I'm Tasha Simms here with Mark
Mark
Caron
Caron.
and our guest today, Federico Vallín. So we're talking about not an easy topic, but I think a really important one, healing from cancer. Since 2003, Federico has worked with hundreds of people over the years as a teacher, a therapist, integrative cancer coach, with one single passion: to help others liberate themselves from their physical and mental limitations. Today, he works exclusively as an integrative coach with cancer patients. He runs a clinic in North Vancouver called Vallin Health, employing modalities such as emotional freedom technique, suggestion therapy, clinical hypnosis, therapeutic imagery, mindfulness, NLP, and meditation. He's also trained in medical support hypnotherapy, advanced theta healing, and intuitive healthcare. His aim is to align the mental, emotional, and spiritual state of clients towards total health. Welcome to the show, Federico.
Thank you, Tasha. Thank you. Thank you, Mark, as well. Thank you for having me here, guys.
So let's start off maybe a bit about you and what caused you to eventually, because I know now you're totally dedicated to focusing on working with cancer patients. How did that happen?
Yeah, that's right. Well, it happened like everything in life. And by the way, just now that I heard you reading or saying my bio, my goodness, so many layers of existence and decades of work and people just came through rushing. It's fabulous. So much story, and sometimes we forget, right? But part of that story that really brought me to this point, to this pinnacle, was that my mom had cancer when I was 17. But one of the interesting things that happened back then is that she never told me.
Oh.
She kept it secretly, and really actually revealed a lot of my mom's personality. Very stoic and holding things to herself very much until the last minute. And eventually she told me, but she told me when it was way more into her control, right? The interesting part about it too is that my mom didn't go into chemotherapy, didn't go into radiology, didn't go into the prescribed, allopathetic method of curing cancer, but she did all the alternative ones, all the complementary ones. And here I am, 30 years something after, dedicating myself to support people in her situation. And I love my work. Every day at work is just amazing. And it's not only about cancer. Cancer is kind of like the specialty in a way that life put me into work with, but it's about healing the individual, the spirit, the self, and the body, of course.
Almost like the cancer is the symptom, but the healing is a whole totality that will apply. I know this show is going to resonate for people no matter what they are struggling with, because I think we're going to dive deep into some of those modalities.
Absolutely. Cancer is a layer, but we can call it a symptom or an illness, a side effect of something else, and that is necessary for our growth, for our development. And yeah, we'll get into it for sure.
Let's start with some of the basics in terms of an overview on cancer, how it starts, how it grows, how it spreads, just the basics, if you will.
Yeah, so very, very interestingly, we have different opinions about it. There is great mystery around what cancer is really. In terms of, we believe that it's molecular, that is structural at the level of the cells. But the ramifications of it, how much of it is emotional, how much it is intellectual at the level of the mind, is what really puzzles me and what has been puzzling a lot of people, right? Interestingly, obviously everybody knows that the numbers worldwide are, exponentially growing every year. And that really brings us to a question, which is like, what is it changing?
Mhm.
society? What is it changing in our lifestyles that is triggering these numbers to be so inflated and to grow so much? And my answer to that is lifestyle. Not only focusing on to what is it that we're eating, what is it that we're drinking, the cleaning products that we use, the clothing that we use, but also when it comes to lifestyle around um, how much of an ability to really detox, to really talk about our feelings, to really live in community, which is super healthy, that we're not experiencing now, and how we're living the consequences of that. So one of them is cancer, but we have many others, right? At the level of the mind, we have dementia, we have all sorts of inflammation and their side effects, but cancer is one of them for sure.
So, am I understanding correctly that we all have these cells that can become cancerous? It's not something you get, correct?
That's correct. And that's one of the principles that I work with my students is on the understanding that is not something that is flying out there, that is
Mhm.
keeping around on the air and out there in the world that all of a sudden gets you, right? But it is something that is developed. Is developed at the level of the cells, and we need to understand the roots and why, because chemotherapy, radiation, surgery is very much about working with the side effects and with the cancer
Right,
itself, but not with what caused it,
right.
which is the key, right?
Well, let's keep going a little bit more down that road because I know there was a study in 2019 that talked about stress hormones and its ability to increase the number of pro-tumor immune cells, and also wake up dormant ones, providing an environment that then is more uh, inviting for them to grow, for these cancer cells to grow. What's your take on that?
Well, let me see if I understand. You're talking about the study that look into stress as a triggering force for cancer. Is that what you're saying?
Mhm. Yes.
Well, definitely. We don't really understand fully what the stress does. I mean, we're starting to understand, but um, stress works at the level of the nervous system. The nervous system activates the immune system, sorry, and the immune system obviously has an impact at the level of blood flow and cellular formation in the body. So that's kind of like the cascade effect, and of course our hormones have a lot to do with this. Um, Oxytocin and adrenaline and everything that we produce constantly because of the things that happen to us, the stressors, trigger certain reactions. And those reactions, I like to say that cancer has a lot to do with constipation, but not only the constipation of the bathroom, but emotional constipation,
Right.
energetic constipation, the not being able to let something flow out of ourselves, and the buildup of toxicity.
Like a stagnant
Of
state.
course,
Yeah.
absolutely. Of
If
course.
you were to describe the difference between a cancer cell, if we were looking at it and a normal cell or a healthy cell, what would that be?
Well, the cancer cell, for some reason, does not have the programming in itself to destroy itself, to come to an end. So it becomes an eternal, a perpetual cell that never dies. And it never dies, in my opinion, because the body has not given to it the signal that it needs to leave. And so it goes into building tumors, into creating changes in the body for purposes that we will talk in a moment. But so that's basically what it is. A cancer cell is a cell that perpetuates its life. It doesn't have the programming to end its life. Also, cancer cells are, you know, very sensitive to heat, in comparison with regular cells, which are heat resistant. Also, there's a few other particularities, but cancer cells are basically that cells that just somehow have managed to stay alive
Mhm.
and not go into the process of dying and leaving space for new cells to grow.
And looking at the mainstream model, is there agreement around what seems to be the biggest cause of cancer? Or is that like just stick with mainstream for a sec, because I know you're not, and we're going to shift direction in a moment, but I want to have an understanding of kind of what's out there. What's the scientific thinking in the mainstream model about the cause of cancer?
Yeah, there isn't. Much has been theorized about the causes, but I mean, for what I've been reading over the years, the statistics I think point genes to be the main factor for the
Genes.
formation of cancer. So to be genetic, and then there is environmental factors such as water, food, gases, etc., etc. But there is not an agreement yet onto what is it that triggers a cell at the level of DNA in order for it to become cancerous. Yeah.
Right. And when mainstream kind of gives you diagnosis, can we just talk about these different stages? Can you go over those for the listeners? And what constitutes, let's say, terminal stage 5 or wherever that is? Can you just go over those stages that are typically used?
So I think, of course we can go through them, but I think one of the things I've noticed that even though it's an important conversation to have, is really not the fundamental one when it comes to stages in terms of, what a stage 1 is and stage 2 or 3 or 4. But the stages that are more interested about myself are the process of a person going from where they are to receiving a diagnosis and then going through their healing process and then healing. So going from the process of not knowing all the way to remission and recovery are kind of stages that I like to work with more because
and we're going to dive into them. The reason for asking is anyone goes into a doctor, they have cancer, this is what they're going to hear. So I just wanted to give people an overview because that's how they talk, right? That's the language of mainstream. And then we're going to move into, hey, here are some options that are not that, if you're okay with that.
Absolutely. You're putting me to the test here with my biology terminology and everything. So for what I remember, stage 1, and if I make a mistake on this, is because really I'm not an expert in the medical part of it. I'm more, my work is more at the level of energy,
Gotcha.
spirituality. But so stage 1 is where the formation is just very centralized and in just one spot. Stage number 2 is when it passes into the tissue right beside it, like in the case, for example, of a breast, is when it passes into stage into the nodes. I believe stage 3 has a lot to do with metastasis, meaning that it has now moved into another part of the body, and metastasis is another whole different conversation. And I believe stage 4 is when there's almost like a point of no return, like in a way where things have come to a level where it's really hard to turn them back. But that is debatable as well, right? So there's many times when somebody get the news like, oh, you are stage 4, this is where you are. But the important is not to fall prey of the fear, and to also understand that many times a person have been told, oh, you're stage 4, this is so-and-so news, but you don't really get to hear much about the good news, about how many people actually heal from that stage 3 or that stage 4, of how many success stories are there, or how your chances of really succeeding are not just from the medical standpoint, but in general, right?
Exactly.
So the conversation about stages is important, but it's also important to not fall just right into that box.
Well, and that's the next place I want to go. I personally know a number of people who have been diagnosed and it's stage 4, and they're, the medical model is kind of like, well, we've kind of done everything we can do, and they're alive today, and they're another term I'd love you to clarify is remission, because again, mainstream model, I think it's 5 years that you have to be cancer free to say that.
Yep.
Right.
So yeah, to be out of the danger zone, like you need to be cancer free for 5 years in order to be considered in a stage of remission. I know. Sorry, so did I interrupt you? Like you wanted to ask something about that?
No, I just want to, now I want to switch gears. I wanted people to have that flavor of what's out there because you delivered it in your message going, this is not a death sentence. This is not a fait accompli. This is not a closed door. If you ever get any of this kind of information, we're about to talk about the things you can do and the success stories, because I agree with you. It's really important to hear about those. I wanted to ask you what you feel the most common misconception is about cancer.
That is a very good question. Well, there's a few. One of the ones I see is the one that you mentioned before, that is a death sentence. There's so much stigma around the word cancer, so much negative, in a way, marketing has been done around it, and about being the killer, about being a monster, about being, and here now we go into the depths of language, and you're a psychotherapist yourself, so I know you're fascinated with language shows like I am to some degree, and I believe we've done a great disservice to people by placing cancer at the level of this enemy that needs to be attacked, burned, killed, addressed. That is this monster that just from outside coming into taking people's lives. Because, well, first of all, the emotional impact, nervous impact that this has on people is tremendous. And another one is the misconception of once a person has cancer, it's always a survivor. It's almost like we're moving into a place, oh, I'm cancer free now, I'm forever a survivor. People wear it as a badge. I've had many students who at the beginning, I'm like, so tell me about your situation. And they tell me about their cancer, almost like they're wearing, like they're carrying their curriculum, their CV, like they tell me the dates and the everything with such an exactitude and wearing as a badge that, of course, it becomes really hard for them to somehow let it go as well. So I really like to talk about the myth of survivorship. Like once you're cancer free, that's it. That doesn't mean that you're a survivor forever. Like, and the way I bring people to this point is this, Tasha. I ask them, so have you had COVID? And some people say, yeah. Do you call yourself a COVID survivor?
Right.
No. Okay. So have you had hepatitis? Yes, I have. Do you call yourself a hepatitis survivor? No, you don't. So why do we call people cancer survivor, right? And why do we carry this? We put people, we put this weight on people's shoulders about becoming a survivor and being a survivor forever. These kind of misconceptions are tough, energetically and emotionally for people. So
yeah. I love that because it fits so much into consciousness. If you're identifying as something you experienced, it's a limitation.
Totally.
Right? I mean, energy doesn't have a story. It doesn't have a narrative. And I'm not saying those things aren't important, but it really limits you if that's your identity. It's just the same as any role that you play, right? If that's it, you're limited.
Absolutely. And you know what? Talking now about at the level of archetypes and archetypal psychology, yes, it is important that at some point through the journey, we might need to resource to the energetic archetype of the warrior, and to be a fighter, and to be a warrior, and to be on the race, and to be on the, but we eventually need to take the mask off. We eventually need to not be a warrior and then relax. But the problem is when that never ends. And so that's a lot of what this marketing around cancer has been perpetuating. That is, that once a survivor, always a survivor.
Right.
That the fight, it's always there. That you never can relax. That once you have it forever. All these misconceptions are really tough. One of the things that when I start working with people in one of our coaching programs, I take away from them is the word mind. on that, or that I am. So my cancer, or I am a survivor. I am a cancer. So because everything we use, we connect with the word I am or mine, we get to keep, right? So I start helping them looking at the cancer as something that is they're going through and that is happening to them, but not necessarily that becomes part of their personality.
Yeah. It reminds me, Joan Borisenko, I don't know if you know her work. She wrote a book, Fire in the Soul, and she talks about a cancer patient who, a lot of people get cancer and they move into kind of a victim archetype. Why me? Why me? Why me? And she talked about this one woman who did work through her cancer, who said, why not me? Was her response. Why not me? I mean, why not you? Why not Mark? Why not, And that led her into a shifting a perception. Instead of being the victim of something, like you were talking about, something's coming at me, I'm a victim of it, to asking the question, what is this for? And it didn't necessarily make the cancer go away. So again, this is not A plus B equals C kind of thinking, but it shifted her perception so that her challenge with cancer became an opportunity to grow herself and her identity. Does that match with your overview?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely, because in my model of the world, illness is a crisis, and every crisis has its purpose. And just like pain has its purpose, we feel pain for our consciousness to be aware that there is something wrong going with a part of our bodies. And illness also brings to the door the awareness that something needs to be addressed at some level within us, right? So I think what happened to her in this example that you're just giving is that she moved from a level of apathy and there's, from a place of there's no solution and hopelessness to a place of action, so a place of courage, and then move her little by little up the scales of the emotional vibrancy to a place of empowerment, which is really what true self-empowerment is. Like, that's another word that is so connected with the world of cancer, empowerment, that is used so freely, but we never really ask ourselves, what is true empowerment, right? Is it this thing that just keeps us going because we just go really hard onto bombarding our body with all these very dense, very negative things? Or is it because true self-empowerment comes from realizing that we have to make a commitment to heal, and in order to make a true commitment to heal, we need to move away from the victim consciousness, right, into action, into really personal power. Now moving into another sphere here, but is super, super important. The commitment to heal, the commitment to have a deep communication with the healing intelligence living in the body, to acknowledge it, right? One of the ways I bring people into this realization is this: you might go through the most advanced chemotherapy, the most advanced radiation, surgery, and everything, but if the body decides it doesn't want to heal, it won't. Right? The same way you can scratch your knee, fall and scratch your knee. If the body decides that it doesn't want to heal and close the wound, it won't. Because there is an intelligence living within us that we're normally not aware of.
Why would it decide that?
Say that again.
Why might the body decide that it doesn't want to heal?
Because there's something pending. There's something that still needs attention. And
attention. In your world, it's attention.
Of course.
And see, for me, it's I haven't answered the question. What is this for? It's trying to get my attention so I can answer that question, whatever it is.
Oh, absolutely. There's an aspect of the personality is still neglected.
Right.
Unresolved.
Right.
And the body, let's remember something, Tasha. We're not wired for happiness and success. We're wired for survival. Not just only survival of the body itself, but survival of the family tree, right? You know this, like, I mean, family constellations and the whole survival of the the species of the clan. Um, Illness comes, in my opinion, as has been formed as a method for biology to bring the organism into the next level of evolution, and eventually, make us grow and survive and perpetuate the life of the clan itself. So it seems a little out there when we hear this, because I know some people are thinking like, what are you telling me, that cancer is actually a survival mechanism, that cancer is actually has the purpose of perpetuating our family tree and our lives? And I think that to some degree it does. And the same applies to all illnesses and pain as well. Is a way for us to really move us into change and to look at what has not been addressed at a personal level. And when we do, we grow, we expand. You know how many students I've had that have told me this? And obviously they tell me this later on in their journey, right? They say, cancer was the best thing that ever happened to me. It made me change all my relationships. It made me change my work. It made me reinvent myself. It made me really address all the levels of toxicity I was living in that I wasn't even aware. Mm-hmm. So when we move a person into that level, that's true self-empowerment.
And that's seeing, I think that's everywhere, not just illness, to use it as an opportunity to grow. We're systems, and our mandate, as you were saying, is to evolve and to keep changing and growing. And this certainly has the power to do that. It's a wake-up call, right?
Absolutely. And with all compassion and with, my hands on my heart, I tell, like, it's not easy when we are obviously in the midst of it, terrified about dying, terrified about pain and the suffering might come through it, terrified of how it brings so much change so quickly into a person's life. Of course, that's where my work comes really to, cover its importance, because I focus on supporting people on detaching, on letting go, on addressing the roots, the emotional roots, on really healing from within. And yeah, anyways.
Well, we're going to get into all the things you do. There's one more thing I want to talk about, though, and I don't know if we're going to agree on this, but for me, there's a new age sentiment or perception that I find extremely harmful, actually. And it's close to what we're talking about, but it's entirely different. So I've heard people say things like, you're creating that, whatever it is, and you created that cancer. In some way, like the body is involved. So you could say that's true, but what it generates in the person is a kind of guilt as to, how am I making this happen? Oh, I must be doing A, B, or C wrong. Like, it takes them down a rabbit hole. I mean, guilt is such a pointless emotion. It's not even an emotion, meaning to attach to what we're doing and how we're living. So I wanted your take on this whole new age thing of you created it versus what we're talking about, because using what is happening as an opportunity to grow is different to me, very, very different than the first thought, I created this. That actually is not, to my system, helpful. It invites guilt.
Yeah, well, I would love for your listeners out there to write down in their notes, and I hope people are taking notes. I would if I was listening to this, to really put the spotlight on guilt. I think you just hit it right on the spot, because let's talk about guilt for a moment. Even outside the realm of cancer, let's talk about guilt in our society. We have a system outside of our bodies. We have a system out there in the world that takes care of guilt, right? A judicial system that execute laws and the penitentiaries and all this. So why do we have a judicial system that takes care of those who are guilty? Well, because there's a sense of revenge that is needed when we feel that someone is guilty. Let me explain a little bit more. When someone's guilty in society, what do? We punish them, right? The punishment is jail. The punishment is whatever it is, a ticket for parking in the wrong place, whatever it is that the person does. If he's guilty, we have systems that punish the person, right? But we have carried, as a society, we have carried the idea that guilt needs to be punished at all levels. So if we find ourselves guilty of anything, subconsciously, we carry the idea that we must be punished. And this is the part where I enter into my work with healing the birth. Where does this sense of guilt come from? Like, does it come from our birth? Does it come from the trauma of coming into our families, that all the stuff that moms goes through, that dad goes through, that we cause in arriving into our families? So guilt is primordial, is old. And also we carry a lot of sense of guilt coming from our families as well. So why do I want people to write down the word guilt and circle it and put attention to that? Is because I want them to ask themselves, where do I hold myself guilty? What am I guilty of? You know, and in my model of the world, what do I see as the force that take care of the guilty? Is it karma? Is it God? You know, is God the one that takes care of those who are guilty? Is it karma the one that takes care of those who are guilty? Is it cancer, you know, the one that punishes? So this is very important, because depending on the model that the person carries in their mind in terms of what do they believe that caused the cancer, is that we have more or less tools to work with. If you believe that it was God's punishment, there's not much we can do. If you believe that there is karma, there's also not much that can be done. If you believe that you have something to do with the formation of it, well, now we have a lot more tools to work with. But if you believe at some level that you need to be punished for something that you did, that you say, that a way of being, then we have work to do. But releasing guilt is guilt is one of the worst disservices that we have done in the spiritual community. Is that you caused this, and then holding a finger on the other person, that is unnecessary.
Yeah, I love that. I think it also translates to, it's a slippery slope, because this idea of creation, you know, you create your own reality, or you manifest, like there's a whole new age belief about all that. And I love the word "and," which is my favorite word in the English language, because it's this can exist, and so can this, and so can this, and so can this, all at the same time. So the "and" in creation is that there's a mystery. There's you called it what did you say? You called it a force, or a healing force. What did you call it?
The healing intelligence.
Healing intelligence. Great. There's a healing intelligence. And although I'm part of it and it's part of me, it also is a healing intelligence that exists. There's something that exists that's involved in co-creation, I believe. And so when we eliminate that, we don't include it, and it's all about, I made this happen. I think that's where guilt comes from, is a belief that you are personally somehow responsible, period. And I love what you said about where you can move when you're, depending on how you perceive what's going on.
Totally. I think the trick is, the ideal is to arrive to a place of acknowledgement of our own power, without falling into guilt. Right. To walk the tightrope of understanding, oh, yes, I can see I had something to do with the formation of this. That doesn't mean I'm guilty, though.
Right.
In my vision of the world, in my model of the world, we're all innocent.
And if you're an energy being, even if you have cancer, and you leave this world, like that identification to me is extremely helpful in terms of finding some peace with being okay. You do everything you need to do, and you may fight, you may do whatever you need to do. Like, it's a beautiful expansion. And if you're only obsessed with the result, you're still again limited.
Absolutely. And, and God has the last word, and the mystery of life is just that, mysterious. And yeah, I think that's my favorite word in English, by the way. Mystery.
Which one? Mystery.
It leaves a whole planet there,
Yeah.
or of unknown. To really,
the only thing we do have to identify, I think that's important about the word mystery, or whatever we want to call it. Is it friendly or not? I'm stealing this from Einstein. It's not original.
Really?
The way, yeah, that's what he said. There's only one question you have to answer: is the universe a friendly place or not? Because now I'm talking, not Einstein, because how you answer that question will define how you see everything that happens, including cancer. Absolutely. Is it this enemy that I got to fight and get rid of, or is something else happening here for me so I can heal? Right?
Yeah. Is illness a force that comes here for my evolution, development,
right?
Both, or is it here to destroy me?
Right.
Right. That's
big difference.
That's it. And I believe in a friendly universe, in a place of where we are innocent, primordially, and where we make a big mistake in confusing the actions of a person with the person itself.
Mm-hmm.
A person can be very mean in their actions. Their actions can be very narcissistic or mean or whatever they are, but the core of the person itself has a level of purity at the level of the soul that is just pristine. Yeah. That's what it is, and that's who we are. Yeah. So if we hold ourselves at that dimension, then we realize that we are not guilty, that we shall not be punished, because there's no really a need for it. That instead of punishment, we can just call it evolution. We can call it growth and development. And yeah, it feels much better to live in that universe.
It does. It's a course in miracles. There's only love or a cry for love. With the bad behavior, it's a cry for love. Otherwise, at the essence, we're all love. I prefer that myself.
Absolutely. Love is all there is. And
there you go. The Beatles knew it.
If it feels or looks like different from love, is part of the illusion. It's a departure.
Yeah.
Love is all there is.
Yeah. And this is not spiritual bypass. Let's touch on that. And then I want to move into what you specifically do at Vallin Health. But what you just said, and what we're talking about here, is not spiritual bypass. Believing that love is at the core of who we are does not eliminate looking at one's shadow or all the areas that need healing. In fact, it's essential, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's actually focusing straight into the greatest level of integration, this non-dualistic.
Yeah.
Spiritual bypassing is dangerous. It's about like avoiding the areas that need attention. And anyways, we can go into that another time. But yeah.
Well, let's talk about Vallin Health. So tell us, somebody's listening going, okay, I was diagnosed. I don't know, maybe they're listening to the medical model or maybe they don't want to, or whatever it is. Tell us about the clinic, what you offer, and what kind of the first steps would be for a person.
Yeah, so Vallin Health is not a physical clinic. I mean, we're not situated in a building or anything. We work with our clients online. We're working with clients all over the world now, which, it's fascinating how this thing is just snowballing and evolving. I love it. We really focus on helping people understanding the root causes of their challenges, their health challenges, mainly cancer, working at the level of consciousness, at the level of energy, resolving emotions and feelings. And the results we've seen are fantastic, really, like seeing pancreatic and liver enzymes dropping in a few weeks, all sorts of results. So what we do is that we have different coaching programs where we get together, we do a lot of work really around thought management, around resolving our emotions, meditation, breath work, you name it. We meet several times a week actually, and we have a beautiful group going. So that's one of the offers we have, and really I would say the main one, working at the level of the subconscious to heal.
Mhm. Let's talk for a minute about hypnosis and why it's so effective in being able to reach the unconscious and offer this kind of healing.
That might be my second favorite word in English.
Which one?
Well, I actually don't know
Talk.
if it's hypnosis or the unconscious, but like
Ah,
it's all around. It's fascinating. I discovered it when I was a kid, and I've been fascinated since. So, um, yeah, the subconscious mind plays a huge role into everything we're doing here because we enter into the realm of projection, right? We enter into the realm of the shadow, into the areas of the psyche that hold memories, that hold us sometimes guilty without us being guilty, or that holds us into those places of limitation with limiting beliefs, limiting mental blocks that hold the person from growing and expanding and healing. So a person could be doing all the medical treatments and could be doing everything right to heal, but still there are limitants at the level of the subconscious mind that
mhm.
are holding them back. And that's why we put so much attention into that area. I'm a clinical hypnotherapist. I have specialization working with cancer patients, and it's fascinating. It's fascinating how much growth, in a good way, how much development happens once the person lets go of something that they're ready to let go. So one of the main things there is to be ready for change. Readiness for change in the triggering positive effects at the level of the subconscious mind.
Is that one of your favorite ways to access the
So
unconscious?
absolutely, through hypnotherapy, guided visualizations. I do a lot of healing imagery, right? Because the subconscious mind speaks the language of symbols.
Mhm.
We know it through because of our dreams, because
Metaphors.
absolutely. So metaphors are powerful. The stories, guided meditations. We do it every week in our program, and the results are beautiful.
Tell us some of your success stories.
Oh well, the latest one, 5 centimeter tumor from breast gone. And the interesting part is that obviously it's very hard for me to say that it is our success
Mhm.
because it's a joint effort, and some of my students are doing the allopathic model of chemo, radiation, and all that. They are in the midst of it. Others aren't. But yeah, that's the one. That's the last one that I really felt very inspired by. Um, receive a text message from my student saying, "I just came back from the doctor and there's no evidence." And ED, and fascinating. It's really so inspiring.
Mhm.
So inspiring.
And you had mentioned this group coming together. So you do group work online. And what's the value of being with kindred spirits or in community? Is your understanding of that and the correlation to healing? Have there been studies done on that where people, when they're in a group, that you actually see better results when there's that kind of connectivity?
There has been studies for sure, and I can tell you that there's so much more potency on the group work. Um, there is such a loving level of accountability that happens within the members, and most of the people that come to work with us, and I know many are going to resonate with this out there, they know the affirmations to use, they know the meditations to practice, they know the kind of music that can help them, they know.
Yeah.
It is in the putting it all together and having somebody who holds you accountable that the power of the group is, right. And also on the having the monitor, the other one, pointing at you areas that are hidden to yourself, right? That are
Mhm.
subconscious, that are that are hard for us to see. And a lot of healing comes from that, from having the loving companion of people who are going through the same process and hold you through your changes. A lot of them are really growing and changing so much, but their families aren't.
Mm.
Now they're in front of another challenge, the friction with their environment. Because as we grow, all of a sudden we leave behind the old. And sometimes the partners, the children, the environment just doesn't support the growth. So having the support of the group is paramount.
And how many people might be in a group?
At the moment, we have about 15 people. Yeah. And so we go sometimes from, you know, different numbers show up because we're working with people all over the world with different time zones. So we record each one of our classes, and people can come later or in the morning and watch them and not have to be there necessarily. So yeah, the group grows, and sometimes everybody shows up at the same time. Many times they don't. But yeah, the energy is the same. The work is equally valuable.
How long might the session be?
An hour. We
An
meet
hour.
about 3 times a week for 1 hour.
And
Yeah.
does everyone get a moment to check in, or just certain people? How do you?
You know what? Not necessarily. I mean, I leave a lot of the space for open questions and all this, but it is not your average. It's not a support group. You
Okay.
know, that's important to highlight here. That is not a support group in which people come and pour their hearts. Obviously, there is an opportunity for that if that's the case in the class, but we come for different reasons. We come to share our experiences through the exercises that I give them. We talk about dreams. We talk about visions. We talk about how we're moving through, facing certain feelings, and then we go into doing our guided meditation work, our clinical hypnosis, our breathing exercises, or tapping, or visualization exercises. So there's like a 70% component of the class is very, very practical. So we don't stick to just talk, because
Okay.
then it stays in the realm of talk therapy and counseling, and a lot of people have been trying to move away from that and having more practical tools.
Hmm. And so, if someone wants to sign up for a group, do you have certain start dates, or how does your program work?
No, we start continuously.
Uh-huh.
We don't have a start date. They can join anytime. You're sharing our links.
Mhm.
Our website, Vallin Health, has all the information with all the success stories and everything. Um, but yeah, no, people can start at any time.
So, if someone's listening and a friend of theirs or a family member has cancer, what would you advocate as one of the most supportive things you could do or say? A lot of people who have friends who are struggling don't know what to do, and they all just go buy soup. What would you advocate?
I know. I believe that one of the reasons for that to happen is that we don't have listening skills. We don't really know how to listen compassionately. And having someone close with cancer also make us face a lot of our own fears.
Right.
Right? So the person might feel fear of dying, fear of going through painful situations, and when someone close to them have cancer, all of a sudden all of this comes to the forefront, and
Mhm.
many times avoidance, or so learning how to listen to the other person is key. Learning how to listen to them compassionately without trying to move them away from their pain. And what I mean with that is this. You're a therapist, you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Well, it's the phrase I used before we started recording, that people are allergic to their feelings. Move away from the pain. Don't go there because you'll feel something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we just don't know how to handle it, right?
Yeah.
We move into sympathy when we should be staying on empathy. And we just don't have the skills to do it. We haven't been taught, right, how to properly listen to someone. And but that's the key right there, to know how to listen to the other one without trying to rush them out of their pain, to
Hmm.
try to convince them that everything's going to be right, when the other person, what they need is just to cry, to put their pain out, to put their fears out.
Yeah.
It takes skill to be able to hold that.
I love that you're offering the kind of approach that could help people, even with our healthcare system being what it is. I heard a horrific story just a few weeks ago on the news about a woman who had a tumor behind her ear and couldn't get the results of the tests fast enough. So by the time she finally got in there, it was so massive that something that would have been a simple surgery is going to disfigure her face, her smile, her jaw, and that's simply the healthcare system and the lags in time to be able to get into surgery and get test results and everything else. So anyone who's facing cancer would be facing the similar kinds of frustrations.
Absolutely.
So I love that you're offering at least a path of feeling like you're working on your healing and opening to healing, even with the reality of our flawed healthcare system.
Oh, absolutely. We work with people who are, deep into the healthcare system and people who aren't.
Yeah.
And whatever you are doing, this is my advice, is whatever you are doing, do it from a place where you really believe is working for you. If you are half-hearted into it, don't do it. Do it with the conviction that, this chemotherapy is gonna help me. I believe so. I am going for it deeply with it,
Mm-hmm.
And I really don't point fingers at our healthcare system or at doctors or nurses, because I love medicine as well. And because I have so much compassion for the people working in our healthcare system, because they are overwhelmed, they are outnumbered. Doctors don't have the time and the ability and the energy to really give the right attention and energy to everybody that they wish they had, because the system is overwhelmed.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Anything else that we've missed that you want to share about your program or the support that you're offering? We only have a couple of minutes left.
Well, I think we covered it all. I really wish, I really hope that the people out there who either have a family member, a friend, or themselves that heard this, move themselves into a place of curiosity and want to find out more about how to address the emotional, the mental, the energetic roots of cancer and heal them from the inside out, and reach out. We love to hear from you. We offer complimentary free calls, where we find out if the person is a good match to work with us, if our team can help them, where they are at with their health, where would they like to be, how we can get them there, if that's a possibility. So reach out. I would love to talk to you guys, to your family, and support as many as we can.
And this is not just for cancer, people dealing with any other kinds of illnesses as well. Are you open to?
I am open to it. In the future, we are building up something. We're actually building up a program for health. We're building another program for healthcare providers as well, with emotional intelligence and listening skills and everything that are so needed. But at this point, our chief project and program is for cancer patients.
For cancer. Well, it's been a pleasure having you on the show. Thank you so much for joining us.
You're very welcome. Thank you so much, Tasha. It's been a pleasure to be here. Thank you, Mark, as well.
You've been listening to Conscious Living Radio, 100.5 FM in Vancouver, Wednesday nights, 6 to 7 p.m. Available as a podcast, www.consciouslivingradio.org, also on YouTube, and of course, right now, Facebook Live. So thanks everyone for joining. And we've been speaking with Federico Vallín. And all the links to find Vallin Health are on our page. Brilliant Mark Caron has already put them up there, right, Mark?
Sure have.
Thanks,